All right, everybody, welcome to another comic book pros review. And the movie we reviewed is Venom, the very first one, because the next one comes out this upcoming week. Uh, Today's episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of the first appearances that were kind of overlooked, but they're pretty significant, especially once you rewatch the movie a few times. You can definitely point them out. Um, but overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I gave it a thumbs up. What did you think of the movie, Norm?
I thought it was great. I definitely gave it a thumbs up. Had a lot to offer. As far as the numbers, it cost about 100 million to make. And hold on to your seats, folks. It pulled in worldwide 150 million dollars, $850 million. So that just guarantees that Venom will be around for our grandchildren,
Yeah.
and definitely we should be buying Venom comic books.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the movie was done extremely well. Uh, you can kind of see where they were wanting to kind of see if they could try to sneak it into the MCU, but on the other hand, Sony's still doing their thing, taking their creative rights and everything that they've done. But all around, it was done, I think, pretty flawlessly, and it's definitely worth taking a second look at that movie because there's a lot of stuff that you might have missed. But we're going to cover over a lot of the first appearances and everything like that, especially when it comes to the comic books portion of it, which is where we're going to start off with. So we're going to go and talk about Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock, main character. But his actual first appearance was in Web of Spider Man number 18. And what's significant about that is you only see him push Peter Parker. That's it. That's what's so significant about that book. Um, Other than that, his actual first full body appearance would be in Amazing Spider Man 298, which is where you kind of start seeing him kind of get the symbiote known as Venom. And the other thing that's cool about that Amazing Spider-Man 298 is it's actually Todd McFarlane's first time drawing Spider-Man. So, pretty big double key type of thing. What do you think about those books there, Norm?
I think those books are great. Anytime you can get your hands on early keys of a character, and the first time a famous artist or an artist that would go on to become famous works on a book or a character that is kind of symbiotic with his rise to fame.
Yeah.
Um, no pun intended there. Is definitely a book worth owning. In fact, any book where it's a first appearance of an artist or a writer is a collectible and not just some throwaway minor key.
Yeah.
I consider it a pretty major key. And even though they haven't always come into their own right away, they inevitably will, especially with the bigger names, the Neil Adams of the world,
Yeah.
Todd McFarlane's of the world. Those get their books. Those books will continue to rise in value.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so that kind of leads us into our next um, category, which is going to be the first appearance of Anna Willing. She's
Perfect.
um,
You ever get that feeling of deja vu?
right, but her first appearance is in Amazing Spider-Man number 375. That's what CGC and everybody calls her first appearance. But she then later on in the movie becomes She Venom, and She Venom's first appearance is in Venom Center Takes All, issue number 2, which is a little bit of a harder book to find, but she does have a cameo appearance in Center Takes All number 1. So, really great books to own, especially if you like collecting all the symbiotes and everything like that. So, the 371 from Amazing Spider Man is a great book to own just to have Eddie Brock's love interest in it. And then when you get into the actual She Venom part, pretty much the first two books from the Center Takes All series is are both really good picks. You have any numbers on those, Norm, or
Give me a book and I'll look them up real quick.
let's look up the 375 because she's going to be in the next Let There Be Carnage movie as well. So that will be it should be a big book that should be relatively easy to find still at shops, but it should still be going up. So people can get those in a raw state if they wanted to grab them and then grade them out.
Yeah, the upper grades 96, 94, 9290 have shown increase in value of anywhere from 6% to 50%. The 90, which is kind of a sought after book because it's so inexpensive, you can get into it for about 50 or $60 or maybe even less.
Yeah.
It has had 5 sales and it's gone up 50% in value over the last year or so. Yeah, so it's a solid book. I've sold many of them over the years, and as I'm sure you have sold and collected many of them over the years.
I've collected quite a few of those.
Do you really? How many would you say you own in your personal collection?
Oh, for the 375s? I have 4 because I was buying them for $2-3 at the time because it was just nobody really liked it. I like the kind of the hollow foil cover because it's a really, really gold sparkly cover, and
yeah, the picture online doesn't really do it justice.
it really doesn't.
When you see it in person, it kind of glares out at you, and you think, "Wow, what is this special comic?" But obviously it's 30th anniversary.
Yep.
But for many years, when I was going into our LCS, not to be mentioned, I would come across these, on sale or just in the back issue bins, just sitting there. Nobody really had any interest in them at all, and I picked up a couple, but I probably didn't have as many as you have in your collection.
But I was just always looking for like the nicest looking one because the one thing about that book is it always has a spine tick in the middle of the spine, so it's notorious to have those ones.
One thing that jumps out is the price. It's got a really good price point for the 9.6s. I mean, you're talking $70 to $80. It hasn't inflated. It's only inflated in price about 6% over the last year or so. So you could still get in at a low price point. And, even better yet, you could probably pick up one of these for only $150. So you just go without power for a month, and there you go. You own a copy of this 9.8.
Right. Oh yeah. So then what we'll do is we'll go into the next book, which is going to be the first appearance of the main villain, which was Riot. Now, Riot is one of the symbiotes that was in the show, but this first appearance, this is Venom Lethal Protector number 5, is actually a quad key. So it's actually the first appearance of Riot, first appearance of Lasher, first appearance of Phase, and first appearance of Agony. So these books usually go for about $60, which, if that is the case, I mean, you're looking at each first appearance of each of those symbiotes being about $15 a piece. So why that book isn't higher price, I don't know. It makes 0 sense because that's a great book to own. You're getting 4 amazing key issues, and I mean, you look at what's kind of happening with Carnage right now in Marvel Comics, and with the whole Extreme Carnage series that was, which is soon finishing up, but they had individual books for Riot, for Phase, for Lasher, and for Agony. So these characters are not going away. Everybody loves symbiotes, and so yeah, it's just a great book to own. You have any numbers on those?
Yeah, I sure do. Some really interesting numbers, actually. The 8.5 in that has jumped 92%. Back in April of this year, it sold for $26, which is probably right around where it's been for a long time.
Yeah.
And you jump forward to September, and we're looking at $50 for that same book. But at $50, even though it's jumped 92%, that's still a buyable book for most people. Most working class folks can afford 50 or even $100.
Yeah.
And even the 9.2s are not that, that much more expensive. In fact, they're actually in this weird example, they're actually less just because of whatever sale happened on the internet. And you get up to 9.4s and you're talking 110% increase. But again, it's only at $85. So
Yeah. Well,
you,
that's what I'm
you're,
saying is
you're,
that
you're in like Flynn if you buy one of these books.
right. And so, and I mean, you look at it and you have, you know, four first appearances of major symbiotes. I mean, they're not just like, oh, hey, here's this one guy that just so happened to get a symbiote, and you know, these are major symbiotes that are actually pretty much gonna be in comics for quite some time because everybody's loving these characters, and so the more that you're kind of looking at it, the you're 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 basically you're buying in like right at the get go, and even us showing you all the numbers and everything like that, you can still find a lot of these books over in like a lot of your local comic book shops back issue bins for really cheap because nobody knows about this book. I mean, that's what our whole channel is about showing you guys about books that have definitely slipped people's radars, and this is one of those books. I cannot count how many times I've seen this book for $5. I mean,
Yeah.
I own a 9.8 of the book. I'm glad I do,
Yeah.
and it's just a book that you should definitely own. So yeah,
This is your point is well taken. This is a book that for the generation that loves Venom, that wants to collect Venom, here is the book to collect.
yeah,
We're this is where Steve and I might have been buying Iron Man or Thor or the Avengers back 10 or 15 years ago, before there were movies, when there was talk of movies, right into the movies. This is an example of that. You're well in advance of additional movies coming out as Lasher, Phage, Riot, and Agony. You're going to be in advance of most of those, and that's where you want to be. This is where you want to pick these up. Steve's absolutely right. 9.8 goes for about $200.
like I said, that's for perfect grade. That is really reasonable. I mean, that's like $50 a first appearance. So
I'd also like to suggest that our viewers do one of two things. If you can afford only the $200, but you want to be able to buy and sell copies, perhaps find lesser grades, but still in the near mint minus or the very fine plus range,
yeah,
and buy two or three of them, or buy yourself an already slab 9.8. You own it; it's yours if that's what you're looking for $200. Either way you go, spending that money is going to work out great. The 9.8 will go up in price probably the quickest, but if you have multiple copies, you'll be able to sell one, hold on to one, slab one, or whatever you want to do if you're
or you
buying
can
them.
upgrade into another one. I mean, the
Absolutely.
lower grades are really easy to obtain, and then
Yeah,
on top of that, you can trade in and out of them, and to get yourself up to those 9.8 grades without any problems whatsoever. So
absolutely. That's a great pick.
yeah, and then the final character we're gonna go over is Carnage. Good old Cletus Cassidy. He wasn't really in the movie until the very end. He was the cameo. Sorry, spoiler alert. He was in the very end. Um, but his first appearance for Carnage was in issue 361, which went into two different printings. And the funny thing about Cletus Cassidy is that's not his first appearance. His first appearance is actually in Amazing Spider-Man 344, where he's actually in jail with Eddie Brock. And so, um, great books to own. Um, I love both the covers of the 361. So you got the beautiful ultra white back cover, and then you have the second print, which has that really metallic silver cover that they did with a lot of those second printings. Um, but if you're going into either the 361 first print or the second print, just know that, if you do go with the first print and say you wanted to find that book, and maybe it has a couple of the little ticks at the very bottom or at the top, just know that CGC will not grade against that book for that reason. It was a known printing cut error that happened, and so they do not. Now, if the book is ripped like a good old inch or so, yeah, they'll grade, against that. But for the most part, if they're just the little small little ticks at the bottom or at the top of the book, they don't count against it. So you can actually get 9/8 out of those books. In fact, actually, I think there is a 9/9 that they just recently graded, and it has one of those ticks on it.
Yeah, the second print I think is the way to go with this book.
Yeah,
First of all, I personally like the silver background as opposed to the white. I think the silver pops a little bit. It's a little bit more interesting, and I love the fact that it's a second printing, and therefore there's substantially less printed of that book. That could give you some covering fire if people started trying to unload the book, and you could maybe get your book off early or at some point, or hold on to it and retain some of its value because it might be quite simply harder to get your hands on. I've got some numbers here to go over with it.
yeah,
9/8 are down a little bit because of an odd bird sale for $285. Typically, this book goes for about 500 in a 9/8. 9/6 $309, 9/4 $225, 9/2 $195, and 9/0 is 180. Those returns, the 9/6 return is 44%, 9/4 is 33, and 9/2 is 39%. So they've had some solid returns over the last year. It's a good book to buy. I like the fact that it's, as we've talked about, a second print because there's less of them out there rolling around. And believe me, in the modern age, they definitely printed a lot of books. So
yeah. I
I
mean,
think this is a good purchase for that reason.
yeah. I mean, if you look at it, if you wanted to say get a first printing, you could buy a couple second printings, flip those, and then buy a first printing really easily with that money that you would make off the second printings. I mean, that's a great way of obtaining that book. If you were wanting to go down that road. But I mean, overall, I really like the second printing. I think it's a really great book, um, and that's just kind of what we see that's happening with the market. You have the first printing is going crazy out of control, and then the thing is the second printings do go up in price along with them, and sometimes the second printings actually go up more than say the original print. So
Yeah, it seems to me how a lot of this stuff works is it kind of gets out there in the intelligentsia of the comic book community that, oh, this is kind of cherished, oh, this is why I like this, or there's not as many printings of this, and then suddenly you start seeing prices go up and people grabbing them up.
yeah,
I think in the lower grades for either of the books, though, you're still going to have pretty reasonable amounts. But I mean, a 6.0 for this second print for $85, that's not bad. A
that's not
6.5,
bad at all.
6.5 120. I mean, that those are pretty good prices. You could get in relatively cheap. And even though this craze of ours has been going on for years now, and it's even upticked, I mean, I've never seen as much growth as neither of us have as we've seen in the last 2 years. And even with that, there's still opportunities to buy in and ride higher and have a profitable collection.
Yeah, definitely. Well, those were the books that we had for this week. Like always, like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. The more of us that we can kind of get on board, we really want to make this channel the best it can be, and we love to hear your guys' feedbacks and everything.
Please
And
please give us feedback.
Oh yeah,
what you
definitely.
want to see, what you like. We will respond to every bit of feedback.
Oh, 100%. And like always, we're the Comic Pros. My name's Steve. This is Norm. And thanks
Bye,
for
guys.
tuning in.